When I was a couple weeks short of my 70th birthday, I started thinking about my mother's mother, who lived to be 100, and her mother, who lived to be 102, and my father, who lived to be 90. I began to think that maybe our generation could be the first to routinely live to be 100. When I talked about this at family dinner one night, my granddaughter, who was 5, said,
"What are you going to do for the next 30 years, Grandpa?"
Hello, I'm Dr. Janet Price.
And I'm Gregg Kaloust. And we are Oldish. And this is our podcast, Oldish.
If you're oldish or know someone who is, please join us every week for conversations amongst ourselves
And our special guests
about what it means to be oldish in the 21st century.
If you ever wonder whether you're getting old, you're oldish. What are you going to do for the next 30 minutes?
Hi, I'm Janet, and I'm oldish.
Hi, I'm Gregg, and I'm oldish. Welcome to this episode of our podcast, Oldish, Conversations on Aging in the 21st Century. Today we have a very special guest. She's a return guest, my dear friend Denise Reehl. She came to talk to us a couple of years ago while it was still COVID, and we talked about long-distance grandparenting, and that, I think, is our third most listened to episode of the 4 years that we've been doing this. Lots of people have commented to me that they were grateful for the tips that they got and for the encouragement that they got. And it was very hard for all kinds of grandparents all over the place to make it through that COVID. But also, even now, it's like, I've got a grandchild in California I haven't seen in months. Both of you have grandchildren that you haven't seen recently. And lots of our listeners are in a similar situation. And we all know that being a grandparent is the best possible condition to have. Denise is going to talk to us today about something a little bit different about oldishness. It's probably as close to as different as you can get. So welcome, Denise.
Well, thank you. It's so nice to be back. Yeah, I'm here to talk about something that I have really enjoyed adding to my life. I am oldish, and we have a group of oldish people who also happen to be widows. It's all women, and it's a kind of a curious way as to how this came about. A friend of mine had lost her husband very suddenly in the spring of 2022. And in late summer, there was a public gathering to celebrate this man. And while I was there, I saw another woman friend that had also just lost her husband. And we were hugging hello, and I viewed over her shoulder, and I thought to myself, oh my goodness, there are so many women that I know here that have lost their husbands. And I said something to my friend that I was hugging, and she said, oh, well, you started it. And because my husband had passed about 17 years before that. And so we didn't talk anymore about it. That was in September. I had said that, yeah, we ought to all get together and have lunch. And then we didn't reference it again. So in October of 22, she texted me and said, hey, I'm having 4 other people over for lunch. We're all widows. Let's do this. So we did. And I have to say, I was a little bit hesitant about it because, like I said, my husband had passed 17 years prior to this. And several of these women were recent widows. And if not recent, within 4 or 5 years. So I thought, oh my goodness, are we going to have to talk about how everybody passed? And I wasn't sure I wanted to do that, but I thought, no, I'm going to this. This is a great opportunity. And I was so wrong. Everybody started talking, and of course they're going to talk about the way their husband passed. But it wasn't at all morbid. It wasn't full of terrible details. It was just the circumstances. And as everyone spoke, I started to feel so connected to each one of them. Now, all of these 5 people, including myself, had been friends over the years. And we also knew their husbands, and our husbands knew their husbands. So there was this friendship connection. But we didn't hang out with each other, and we hardly ever saw each other. And so I started to feel this bonding, not from circumstance or just because we were all there for lunch together. It was the fact that each one of us had lost this dear partner that, in this case, everyone had been married for at least 30 years. And then even if it wasn't a sudden passing, the actual act of passing is very sudden for anyone. So there was a new bond forming, and I really could feel it just in that one luncheon. So at the end of the lunch, everybody was thinking, well, are we going to do this again? And we all agreed that we were not going to set times for this. We wouldn't say, oh, let's meet every month or let's meet every week. We just said, we think we'll know. And that's been true. Someone will text and say, isn't it time we get together again? And it's turned out to be like seasonal, once in the summer, once around Christmas, once in the spring, etc. And it's worked for everyone. So that's how it began. But, when we get together, we do not talk about this. We don't talk about that one instance when our husband passed. We are very much in the present and talking about our futures. I think that all of us are very interested in each other's lives. Each one of us has had to recreate ourselves since we lost our partner. And we are really individually discovering who we are and also discovering each other as friends, even though we knew each other. Now, it started out as 5 people, and it went along that way for about a year and a half. And then one of the members said, I know a woman who would really benefit from being in our group. And the other 4 of us said, oh, I don't think so. I think this is like our group, So she didn't push it, but she mentioned it again the next time we met. And we weren't ready for that again. But then the next time we said, all right, let's do that. Let's add someone in. Well, nobody even knew this person except the person who suggested. And we didn't know her husband. And in fact, her husband had passed like 25 years before, since this. But when she came, oh my gosh, she fit right in. And I know it was because she knew how it felt to be in a duet and then suddenly be a single. And it's a very sudden transition that you don't plan on. And it requires a lot of quiet thought and maybe even prayerful thought. And she had done that. She knew what the experience was and brought her own experience of looking at herself in a new way to all of us. So that was a lovely addition. And now we're up to 7 people. And that's because recently, within the last year, 2 of our acquaintances lost their husbands. And so they're the newest in the group. And surprisingly enough, we haven't even spoken about the circumstances of those passing. So I think that it's a bond that's really obvious when you get in the group and you realize you've had the same experience. And it's a very strong bond.
That's really remarkable. One of the things that we know about is that as people become oldish, one of the things that many people struggle with is loss of community for various reasons. And one of the big reasons for loss of community is so many people, especially people in long-term marriages, everybody that they know is a married couple friend. I live in that same small town where you live, Denise, and I know that any party that you went to, all of that original group of women were there. And if you went to the Johnson Hall Opera House, especially during the part where it was still being renovated, all of those women were there and had a role. When our kids were little, at least 3 or 4 of those women were involved in starting the little evergreen school that we started back then. But it was always as part of a couple. So I knew all of those people as this couple. So they almost like had one name. I used to refer to you as Benice, Benny and Denise. So that community based around, that's about as big a thing as you can have in common. That's not a little surface thing. That's not fishing. That's not roller skating or a book club or even a choir or something like that. That's a major thing that a limited number of people can reach in their hearts or have to reach in their hearts. And so that gets you started off on that deep level right away. You can almost hear the hearts and souls clanging in together around that situation.
Yeah. And, that's not to say that your friends, your married friends, are not empathetic and, they want to support you and everything, but they can't really see or know what this transition feels like.
Yeah.
And it's great to hear the joy and the laughter that comes from this group. I mean, we laugh about the absurdities of life. We recommend a good book we've read. It's about our growth. It's about our continued transitioning and getting used to being a whole person. That's a very important thing, I think, because marriage is a wonderful institution, but very often we can lose ourselves in that, men included, and some of the requirements of marriage include that. But when you're on your own, it's, it's independent thought and just feeling out your own desires and seeing what the next step is for you.
That's so powerful. And you're touching, as Gregg was saying, on various themes of being oldish, the sense of community, the sense of belonging, the sense of connecting with others who have similar trajectories right now. So what you just spoke of is so important as far as through our oldishness, we are losing partners, losing careers, losing active parenting, so many things. And first of all, to be able to find yourself in all of that almost feels like a crucial, essential element of aging. And so it feels so powerful just listening to you talk about this group. I wanted to ask, you had mentioned before we started recording what you all actually call your group. And I wondered if you wanted to share that.
Well, there's been a couple names, okay? I'm not sure I've even used the name that I call it. I call it the Widows Group. And that's just a short, widows for widows. And it's meant endearingly. Another person in the group calls it the Wacky Widows. Some people didn't like that. Others said, yeah, I'm wacky. So, yeah, we all know what we are. And we just find humor in it as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Again, such an essential piece of aging is being able to find moments of humor and moments of joy. as you mentioned in your group. So do you ever talk as a group? I hear you that you don't talk about specifics around when your husbands died or what the circumstances were. Do you talk much about, it sounds like you do, about what it's like to be an individual now and what it means heading into these later years of our lives on your own now?
Not really in terms like that, but we do. Sometimes you'll hear, a story and they'll say, and as a woman, it meant this, as a single woman, it means this to me.
Mm-hmm.
Or, I don't know. I mean, we all seem to look forward to the next step. And when we share what our next step is with everyone, it opens up another possibility for everybody, that they may not have thought of.
Yes.
Oh, one time we had a little discussion about dating. And I remember that they were humorous situations, and everybody in the end said, forget about that.
Okay. Yeah, I wondered
Yeah.
if you talked about things like that.
Yeah, we do occasionally, but not too much, actually.
Mhm.
We also bring all the food. We're avid recipe exchangers. And around the holidays, sometimes someone does a craft and they'll bring samples of that, share their work. I don't know. We mostly tell stories, we laugh, and exchange recipes and just have a good time. And we always hate to leave. It goes on for a couple of hours, and yet some of us are still working. So, the clock ticks on that. I just love the wisdom that comes from this group, too, because there's an age span of 20 years to this group. Yeah.
So what,
And-
like 60 to 80 or 50 to 70?
Yeah, 60 to 80.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I'm somewhere in between. And a lot of us are. Not a lot of people are 80. A couple. And they share just as much news as we do. And they inspire us.
Yes. Well, and
Yeah.
that's such a lovely experience to be in those different ages. So the 50-year-olds, 60-year-olds can look at the 80-year-olds and see, we need, I think, models and examples of what this
Uh-huh.
could look like, what we might want ourselves to look like if we live that long. And then for the ones that are older, to have the wisdom and to also be stimulated and alive while they're living, to feel
Yeah.
alive in all of that.
Yeah. I think that there are a lot of surprises in our conversations,
Like what? That's
Um,
interesting.
Yeah, which to me is youthful. And we're not giving up because we've lost a partner or because we're oldish. We just want to live an active and meaningful life.
Yes.
And I think when you're in a group of people who are oldish and they all hold that goal, then you tend to not only imitate it, but you tend to love that relationship.
Yes.
I think that for me, a lot of people talk about space and going to the moon and Mars as the last frontier. But I really think it's relationships that are the last frontier, because we have yet to solve that here. And this speaks to me of relationships, this group.
What do you mean when you say that we haven't solved that here? It's the last frontier. What do you mean?
I think we're still struggling with harmonious relationships because it does require selflessness. And I think not everyone, but many oldish people have learned how to do that, to be selfless. They do it first, people do it with their children. You especially do it with your grandchildren. And then when you're in a group of people who have been through a transition like this and maybe are still mourning. Some of them are. You can be selfless around that. So it's just another step in the growth of harmonious relationships.
Denise, I just find this so fascinating because everything you're saying is what we're talking about, why we started this podcast. What does it mean to continue aging? When you talked about that there are a lot of surprises, which is youthful, I think part of the reason why it's youthful is because so many people don't think that there could be more surprises as we're aging. So the fact that you all are experiencing surprises is like, oh, look at that. We're 60, 70, 80, and there's still surprises coming along, and we get to experience them individually, together as a group, and it's not going to stop until our lives are over.
Yeah. And it's wonderful to see. You can talk about that, but to be experiencing it with others is wonderful. So, yeah, there's a lot of strength in the women that are in this group, and kindness as well. A lot of kindness.
Kindness is kind of the key. I've been sitting here thinking of the original 5 people. I know you all, and I knew all of the husbands, and I knew all of the couples and their relationships. And there was something in common with all of the first 5 people. I don't know the other people, but the first 5 people, there was something in common where you never know what's going on inside of somebody else's relationship. So I'm not making major statements about what it was like behind the closed doors, but each one of those marriages appeared to me on the outside to be partnerships of equals. And that the husbands were very strong. They were professional men. They were highly educated. And they were, as far as I can recall, all especially kind people. And
yes,
so were all of the women. None of the people that you talked about or who were part of the group had been relegated to the role of second fiddle or housewife or anything like that. All also professionals, also strong, also very kind. And so I suspect that many women or men too who become widowed, it's like, who am I now? And I have to reinvent myself. But a lot of the women that I know who are in the group just carried on being the same strong, wonderful people that they had been all along. There was no, oh, now I have to go get a job and I didn't before, or who am I without my husband telling me what to do, or any of that. I didn't see any of that in those relationships. So there's a continuation there. And you also have that all in common too. You can make a very long checklist of things that you 5 women have in common. And of course you're all there, but I can't let this all go away without pointing out that this is a pretty large cluster of widows in a very small town. And I'm starting to wonder, is this Cabot Cove? Where are we?
I have no answers for that.
Where are we living now? It's, it sounds like it could be a cool mystery show.
I wouldn't be the director for that.
No, but it's kind of suspicious. It's kind of suspicious.
Yeah.
These women all bumped off their husbands and they figured out a way to get away with it. And
well, that's what went through my not exactly that. This curiosity when I was hugging my friend and I was looking around and realizing this, I texted all the women in the group. And I told them that I was going to be doing this podcast, and I asked them if they would like to just share with me what this group meant.
Great.
And there were some beautiful things that were said. But this one, I think, is a great ender for this session. She said, "It feels good to know that we are all paddling our own canoes without going underwater, and managing to find a new cadence to life, even though it's not the life we chose." And I think it really sums it up. I'm just so grateful. There were a lot of thoughts that were similar to each other shared, and I've tried to share those with you today. And so we just go on as living people.
Well, I was going to ask you, Denise, before you shared that beautiful, what someone in your group shared, what it has been like for you personally to have started or be part of the beginning of this group. You started it by suggesting it, and then it got rolling, and now it's 4 years later. What has it been like for you?
Well, I can honestly say I don't think I would have thought of forming a group like this or even being a part of it. It had been a long time since I had been on my own, but it was revelatory joining the group. And I just treasure the time we spend. And sometimes I think, oh, I wish we had more meetings. But I do realize that maybe we have 4 or 5 a year, and it becomes really precious time. And it is enough. It's enough to do that. The last 2 people who joined our group, I don't know really well. I've known them for a long time, like 40 years. I've known who they were. We've had friendly conversation, but we've never had deep conversations. And I'm looking forward to that because I think some of that will come out in this group.
Absolutely.
With them too. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I had 2 comments. One is that you were talking about you feel like relationships are the final frontier. And I'm thinking of that in the broad sense of as we look at relationships from our children as adults to our own experiences. And I feel like relationship is the final frontier as we're aging. Like, what does that look like, both as friends, as widows, on our own in the aging process and being oldish? So that seems powerful. And the other thing I wanted to say is for people listening, this feels like such an important model, so people all over the world that listen in on our conversations, if you are a widow or a wacky widow or any version of that, you've just listened to Denise kind of write out the template. This is what it looks like. This is what we do. And obviously everyone can have their own version of that, but it sounds like a really important happening for oldish people who fit in this category of being widowed or a widower.
Yes. And I will say that in everyone's notes, they said, I needed this group, or I have grown to love this group, and I'm so happy to have it in my life. So that's the universal sentiment with all 7 of us.
Yeah, that's really important. I would like to point out that one of the great things about being alive in this time where we are now, and I have to look for stuff like that every day when I get up. It's like, oh man. And so to get out of bed, I have to find something that's good about where we are now, this timeline, that's something that's good. So I would just point out that prior to this timeline, your widows group would have had a different name. It would have been a coven, and you guys would have all been in danger.
A coven like a witch?
Yeah, like a witch's coven, because that's because one of the scariest things to the patriarchy is a collection of strong women bonding together to generate a new kind of energy. And so you clearly have to be burned at the stake.
Well, I'm glad you're not living in that time.
Yeah.
And Gregg, you made me think of another term, which is crone.
Yeah.
And that you're all crones, and you're crones in a specific context of being widows.
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And crone, doesn't that indicate wisdom too?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I wish I could be a
so
crone some days.
Well, you can't.
I know.
I don't know what the male version of that is.
There isn't one.
Well, there you go.
It's a gathering of knuckleheads for the most part.
I've actually heard of a men's group that's been formed in Gardner.
Really?
And I was so encouraging of it. I just thought, yes, this is exactly what others need. and other males. I mean, that's not a natural thing for most men to gather in a group. And I mean, if it's not about a sports, this is just a group to be together and talk.
Mm-hmm.
So there's hope.
There is hope. And as we were saying a little bit ago, this model, what you've and your others have created, can be for widowers, can be for widows. Denise, it's so wonderful to spend time with you again, and such an important topic, and how you've all approached it touches my heart.
Well, thank you for creating this venue. I think it's just such a great idea, Oldish, and it just needs to be out there and expressed, because there's a lot of us baby boomers.
Yes, there are.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, less every day.
Thank you so much.
I'm just really grateful because, as you both know, you're very high on my list of favorite people to hang out with. And this is a real treat for me. So I'm sorry I butted in every once in a while, but
Not at all. You're a big part of this. Yeah.
I don't have any choice.
You're a big part of my life too, Gregg.
Yes. Well, I appreciate that. So this has been great. So, and I suspect that this conversation will, in a relatively short period of time, nudge its way past the number of listeners that long distance grandparenting has had, and will move right up to the top of the list of our most listened to episodes.
Oh, wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, it would be nice. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know that statistic. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm unfortunately still a numbers guy to a certain extent. So I check those numbers, and the grandparenting one is way up there. It's the one I get asked about the most. When I'm out and about and people ask about the podcast, it's the one that I get asked about the most, is the grandparenting, because I think people are a little nervous about coming up to me to talk to me about the sex ones, which are actually at the very top of the list. But the grandparenting one, that's safe. So
Yeah.
I get asked about that one a lot.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you, Denise.
Yep.
Thanks, Janet.
Thanks for all of you who are listening. And we'll be back soon with more about being oldish.
That's right.
Yay.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you both. Bye-bye.
Bye.
That's it for now. Thanks for listening. As always, it was great fun talking with Denise Reehl. Learning about this new, spontaneous, and necessary type of community was fascinating. We hope it gave you some ideas. Please join the conversation on our website or Substack. We'd love to hear your stories. Coming up next is a conversation between Janet and Gregg about Swedish death cleaning. Listen up. After that, Leslie joins us for another edition of the Oldish Book Club. We're reading The Swedish Art of Aging Exuberantly by Margareta Magnusson. You can find it in your local library, local bookstore, or at bookshop.org/shop/oldish. And don't forget to love everyone. You can leave comments or requests for topics or guests on this or other episodes at www.oldish.me. There's a link there, too, if you've wondered how you can help support our podcast. If you like what you heard today, please tell a friend and rate and review our podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. That'll be on there.